Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Live Living with Intention. I am April Wyatt, and I'm your host for this hour where we get to talk about kindness and leadership. This is so important. And in the global shifts that are happening and also within ourselves, it's really important to bring ourselves back to that space. And it's because our minds get so wrapped up in things. As I'm a somatic performance coach, so I'm thinking about the body. I'm thinking about how when we're not in that state of openness or kindness, we're in that rushing mode, right? We can't think as clearly and we're disconnected. We're really disconnected from what helps us be in this space of compassion and kindness. First and foremost, I want to say for ourselves, right? I just need to say that, as we fill our cups, as we bring it back to ourselves, then that's where we can give from that authentic space, that kindness, that reciprocity that happens. And other people can feel it. They can feel it when you walk into the room. What type of mental state you're in or embodied state, right? And when we are kind to ourselves, we have more compassion for others as well. And that's really important, whether you're a leader, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, a parent, working with other people in the community. We need to remember that we are the ripple effect. And this is why I'm here. This is what I love to do. If you're not familiar with me, I love bringing together people, different dynamics to talk about wellness, to talk about well-being and how that impacts us, communities, and the world. Because we all need that remembrance that it starts with us. And today is no exception, as I had two phenomenal people with me. But before I bring them up, I want to bring in to talk about just kindness isn't just being nice either, right? It's about a kind of positivity, a steadiness that we hold within ourselves. It strengthens our decision making. The environments, it changes, it shifts that. It really does. And the people that are in those environments. And also it's a regulator for people to feel more relaxed, to be able to breathe easier, to reflect and respond with the intention, as my business is living with intention. It really does. It really affects everything. And when leaders embody it, that ripple reaches far beyond themselves, communities, again, globally. And that's the thread that we're going to be exploring today. And it also it includes the experiences that I have created through a Bali retreat. So I just want to show this image of this Bali retreat that I have coming up. And that is on October 10th through the 17th. I don't have the dates on here right now, but it's the 10th through the 17th. And it's really a place where you can come, you can have those experiences of gentle breath work, movement meditation. So it's not a meditation where you're sitting still, it's moving, it's connecting to yourself, because that's where the magic happens. It's all within us. And when you feel safe and supported in that environment, which Bali is absolutely stunning, as we're going to be on the northern shore, surrounded by the beaches, just steps away from the beach, basically, away from the hustle and bustle of Ubud, the capital. So a lot of people think of Bali and all these yoga retreats and things. No, we are far out on the northern shore. And that's what I love. I love immersion. I love inclusion. I love reconnecting to nature, because that's the foundation that's where we find ourselves. So if that sounds like something that calls to you, please scan that QR code, either the top, that'll bring you to my webpage, or down at the bottom is the Bali retreat direct link, or reach out to me. I'd love to share more about Bali with you. It's really about rediscovering more of yourself. And since we're speaking of kindness too, I just want to give a shout out to Mike Ashebrander and the Hounds of Business. This is how I met both Dr. Elia and Randy through the Kindness Worldwide connection with Kevin Smith. And he is an amazing individual that really has a heart-centered approach of leveling each other up, promoting each other's business, and having that beautiful kindness effect in everything that he does. And speaking of which, I also want to say something about this amazing event that's going to be coming up on Wednesday, March 1st. This is the first panel of 4 that I have the privilege of being able to support and sponsor in. And this is the She Wins event. And this is talking about women, talking about how when women come together and lead and offer their own insights and support for others, we all win, right? So you can find more information on my LinkedIn page. I will repost that, and also on Mike Ashebraner's and the other sponsors you'll see behind me when I come full screen, because I decided, hey, I'm going to highlight this. This is my show. I can do that. And I see fellow Hounds in the chat already celebrating this. So this is an amazing opportunity for anybody, even men, to highlight and celebrate women. As you can see, the other Hounds of Business brand face and the Flourish Foundation, I Am Magazine, my logo, Living with Intention and Kindness Worldwide, and everybody here to support Women's History Month coming up. So as we are talking about kindness today, I just want to also talk about the amazing guests that I have today that's shaping this dialogue, and they're bringing their own aspects of kindness. As Dr. Elia, he brings a global perspective on happiness, well-being, and positive psychology. That's what I love about him. I had a one-on-one with him, and he really exudes that in everything that he does, very intentional. And his work shows how kindness does shift the way that people think, and they communicate and lead. And it's wherever you go, right? There you are. And also another kindness ambassador is Randy McNeely. He's an amazing individual. He's actually here in Iowa. I need to go see you, Randy, and connect. He's on the other side of Iowa. But Randy's a champion of courageous kindness. He speaks of his own experiences and his writings and media projects, right? He helps individuals and organizations build cultures rooted in kindness and intention and connection. And that's all that we need, right? We need that strength and trust. So each of them brings a different aspect of kindness into leadership. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I know I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to bring them up to the stage so that they can share their own insights. Here is Dr. Elia and Randy McNeely. Thank you so much for being here with me and sharing in this such an important conversation today.
Thank you, April. It's our honor and our pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, April. It's just a thrill for me to be here.
Of course, of course. I'm very excited to have you both. I mean, when I started thinking about how can I bridge this to leadership, and speaking of kindness worldwide, and you both just popped into my mind, and we've been coordinating this for a little while now. So I appreciate your flexibility as, life happens, right? Yeah. So, for those who don't know you or aren't aware, I just gave a little snippet, right, of what you do. Can you share, you know, who you are and what's happening for you with kindness right now? Randy, do you mind going first?
No, that's great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
I'm
loud
seeing my
and
video.
clear.
Okay, good. Right now I'm just happy as all get out to be able to have a chance to be here with you and Elia. I have the privilege of having Dr. Elia as one of my partners at Kindness Factor International. We've been blessed to be able to partner with Kindness Worldwide and had the pleasure of filming a fantastic documentary called For Such a Time as This, sharing the powerful story of the spark that ignited the movement for kindness worldwide, as well as a collection of information. Good grief, I can't talk. A collection of transformational stories about the power of kindness and how it can change, and not only change but save lives. And so that's been a big focus for the last year. And now Dr. Anelia and I have started to collaborate on some new books potentially, and I'm also working with some other individuals to collaborate for speaking in schools as well as in the healthcare industry to help bring a little bit more kindness back into the healthcare industry and remind both patients and doctors about the importance of the love that kindness brings in the healing process. So that's a little bit about
Mm.
what I'm working on.
Wow, that's just not a little. That's quite a bit, Randy. And you truly embody it too. Your compassionate and kindness, your wonderful heart and soul, you just pour into this work. And I'm just so grateful that you are here shining your light and sharing this with us today.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, April.
Yeah. And Dr. Elia.
First of all, if there was a picture next to Divine Feminine, it should be your face. You like really exemplify and personify what Divine Feminine looks like. The way that you glow, like really, and it's the glow is, as you know, from the inside, and you see it in your countenance. It's so beautiful, April. So first, thanks for having us here. I just want to start off with that.
Oh, you're so generous. Thank you so much.
So I'm known as America's happiness doctor, and happiness and kindness are intertwined. You really can't have one without the other. A little bit about me. I was a clinical psychologist in private practice for a good long time, first half of my career before I switched over to the corporate side. I'm passionate about happiness and kindness, and we'll talk more about that, how they relate. What's happening right now? I'm literally about to embark on a 10 keynote speaking tour in 4 countries over the course of the next 2 months. Hey, Mike, I love this guy. He's just anyway, so I'm excited. I'm a little overwhelmed. I've never had like that, that kind of back to back to back keynotes, but it's really all about spreading the light and spreading the message of happiness and kindness, both on an individual basis, but also in a cultural and organizational, because I'll be speaking to a lot of corporate and HR people, in various of these, in a couple of universities. So yeah, I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited and a little nervous. It's kind of like a.
Oh, I love it though. I love that you show up transparent, saying, yes, I'm doing all these things, but I'm a little nervous. But once you get in front of those people, and that's the big audiences that you're going to be addressing, do you feel that they are just craving kindness? Do you feel that they are so open to it? Or do you feel that there's some resistance there, Dr. Elia? What do you think about that?
I don't know, but what I can tell you is that the last of these 10 keynotes is at the World Happiness Summit that Karen Guggenheim put together in Lisbon, in Portugal in May. And wouldn't you know it, because what is the theme? The theme is kindness. And when I asked her, I said specifically, I'm like, Karen, great honor, of course. This was it's like going to the Oscars for me. This is the epitome. There's no other conference that's above it in my field of work. So I'm extremely grateful and excited. But I was like, Karen, who is the audience? Like, who comes to your conferences? And specifically this year, when the theme is kindness, and she's like, you know what? It's all the big consulting firms, McKinsey, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, whatever, Prada, Nike, all these big companies. And I'm like, why do they come to your conferences? And she goes, specifically because toxicity in the workplace is an $11 trillion problem yearly.
Wow.
Really, that's more than most countries' GDP. And so I'm like, so they come to your conference, they can learn more about how to eliminate toxicity, right? And to me, if toxicity is the cancer in organizations, right, and in culture and in our society, then kindness is the antidote, pure and simple.
Mm, indeed, it is. It is. And it's so important for us to remember uh, that it really starts with us. It really starts with us giving that back to ourselves first, because then that's when it's authentic and genuine, and we're wanting more for others instead of expecting something from them. There's a kind of a fine line, right? If people are like, well, I'm kind to them because of X, Y, and Z. No, it's more of kindness because you are genuine and wanting to champion other people in that space. Yeah, Randy, as you work in the schools and connecting with physicians, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, the reality is, if we want to be able to connect with people, which is there's a big problem we have in this country with a lack of connection, with loneliness and isolation due to lack of connection. And it's not a problem just with individuals, it's a problem within organizations and other things like that. And if we want to be able to reestablish and rebuild those relationships, then we have to find a way to do that. And the best way I know how to do that is by embracing kindness and looking for opportunities every day to show people through the way that you interact with them that you value them and appreciate them, and help them to understand why you value them and appreciate them. And as people do that, as they adopt that lifestyle and make kindness who they are, not just a nice idea, but actually making kindness their identity, then we start to create cultures where people feel safe, where they feel like they can share their ideas, where they feel like they can be seen and heard, and then things start to improve and get better. And it's just a natural flow once you start shifting your intention that way.
It is so true, and it takes that presence and willing to step into that space within ourselves. As you said, you choose you first. You choose to be kind first.
Yes. Can I
Yes.
share just one quick thing with you about that?
Oh,
There's a
please
simple
do.
little song I heard or learned when I was a child. Is I want to be kind to everyone, for that is right you see. So I say to myself, remember this: kindness begins with me. It's hard to give kindness away, or anything from your own cup if your cup is empty. And you have to take the time to fill your cup, and then look for every opportunity you can to go out and give that kindness away. And interestingly, the more you give away, the fuller your cup gets.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just as you said, Dr. Elia, about just being a little vulnerable, a little transparent about being nervous, speaking in front of these big global events and things. And I am just curious, with your work, you've spent years showing leaders how to positively, strengthen their judgments, and their steadiness. So from your experience, what shifts inside the leader, right? These people that are to be this prominent leader for their corporations, businesses, right? As you said before, these big corporations are spending so much money on the leakage because the lack of kindness in the community, when they choose kindness instead of urgency and pressure, right? What shifts there for them? What have you noticed?
And just by the way, just to correct something, I'm not nervous about speaking. Actually, the speaking part is I'm in my element. I love being in front of people. I'm nervous about the logistics. I'm like putting it all together, my little ADHD brain. Anyway, as far as like organizations, I work with senior leaders. That's for the C-suite. Obviously, they're successful, or else they wouldn't have risen that high up in the organizational chart. Or they're business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and so on. So they definitely have a winning mindset. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where they are. However, if you want to create cultures of engagement, and we know that 8 out of 10 employees are disengaged. That means if you have 100 employees, 80 of them are showing up, they're getting paid, but they're not engaged in doing the work. So you're only actually getting 20% of, if you want to switch, so that's a significant number. As a leader, you have to change from, the winning mindset is good. I'm not downplaying that. It's not enough. My question to senior leaders is, where's your heart set? And initially they're like, what? Yeah, where's your heart set? Because if your heart set is only on having profitability and so on and productivity, I know it's necessary. Obviously, the bottom line impacts. But if you want to have a real impact, then we have to act differently. And this is kind of where I go. It's not AI that's going to get you there. It's AAI, which is awareness.
Yes, share that.
Awareness, action, impact. In other words, do you have the pulse of your organization? Do you know? Because if you don't, then perhaps it's time to slow down and spend some time with them and get to know their needs and their wants to create, what I would call psychological safety. Because when people feel psychologically safe, then they're going to be more creative and more innovative. They're not going to be afraid of making a mistake. They can learn from that, right? You're creating the foundation of a culture of kindness. It's transformative. The impact, obviously, in the end, it's the bottom line, but it's so much more. You have people that actually want to work, so there's less turnover, great retention. You have people that are so happy being in your organization that they become your marketing tool. They start recruiting other great talent. April, you should come and work in our company because we have a great culture. You don't have to pay marketing to do that. Your own employees do it for you. And there are so many other more benefits, but to me, where's your heart set? You got to get clear with that. Mindset is important. It's not enough.
Yes, that is so important. What is your attention on your intention? What's the intentionality of why we're showing up? That's what I share with my clients and my community. Put your attention on your intention. Yeah, we have great intentions. We want so much for ourselves, our community, what have you. But where is our attention getting there? And that's just as what you said, Dr. Elia, is the heart set. Where are we setting that for ourselves? Yes. And so I'm curious, Randy, your work, as you said, centers on courageous kindness and action, right? Being out in the community. What have you seen in families, organizations, or communities when kindness becomes that daily practice rather than something people remember only when things are calm or when they should be that way? For example, around the holidays, right? Everybody kind of gets in more of a happier state, it seems, and offering that kindness then. But, how do you see that kindness contagion happening in your communities? Keeping it going.
Okay. If you want to talk about, families and organizations or communities, here's the thing. We talked about it briefly earlier, but when kindness becomes a daily practice, when you're doing it with intentionality, it becomes a culture. And then what happens in families where arguments used to prevail, they start to turn into conversations because people feel safe instead of defensive, right? When you feel, like Elia was saying, when you feel safe, you're open to talking, and you're not in that defense mode, walking on eggshells. And it's the same thing inside organizations. When, where there might have been competition before, it starts to shift toward being able to collaborate with each other. And, when people get to a point where they stop protecting their turf and then they start building trust, what happens within the organization? Collaboration goes up, motivation goes up, innovation goes up, all those things happen. And in communities, where people have been suspicious of each other, that starts to soften because people start to look for and assume the good. Perfect example of that in the film, For Such a Time as This. We share the story of the commissioner of police in New York, Dr. Michael Muldrow is his name. He is the perfect example of how things can shift in a community when you start focusing on kindness. He took a month and he went out into his community without a gun on, and he walked through the roads of the community because he says, if I can't be out here, and if I'm going to invite people to walk in their community and be open in the community, I have to be able to do the same thing. And a lot of people are nervous about him doing it. And, some of the people who live in those areas, are you really going without a gun? I'm really going without a gun. But he did it to be able to show that when you have a different mindset, different attitude, and look at people as if they matter and they have value, things can start to change. And, it's when kindness is practiced consistently and not occasionally, what happened, just like what happened in York, people start to believe that they matter. And what happens when people believe they matter? They show up differently. They show up totally differently. You show up differently. I show up differently. And just because we have daily kindness, it's not going to make everything perfect. Nobody's perfect. None of us are. But it helps to bring some steadiness into our lives. And when we get steadiness in there, that's when we start to build strong families, strong teams, and of course, strong communities.
Yes, that's what it is all about. You guys are really hitting the mark here. I mean, because you walk the walk, you live this daily, and I really appreciate how you embody this and really exude it with each of your connections and how you relate to other people. That's, I think, what really matters. And as you mentioned, Dr. Elia, about the psychological safety of it, right? This is about nervous system. This is the soma, the body, as I'm very familiar with, and we all should be. When our nervous system feels safe, right? When the environment feels safe, when a leader feels safe, that creates that trust, that connection, that team, that really working cohesively as a team. And I just want to bring it back to you, Dr. Elia, about that positive psychology, right? That teaches about emotional states, right? Influences the nervous system. So how does happiness and compassion practices support someone who's trying to lead or live in that steadiness when life demands more of them, when they feel that there's more overwhelm, there's a lot of pressure to do things? How does the happiness and compassion practices support them?
Yeah, and I also wanted to bring something up about kindness towards self. And as much as both you and Randy talked about how important that is, and you can't give from an empty cup and so on, in my experience, both as a psychologist and as a coach, working with thousands and thousands of people, I feel like kindness towards self, which could translate into self-care, a lot of times is missing in action. So what we end up having is people who have kindness in their hearts. They're beautiful, wonderful people who give and give and give, and then they hit the wall, and then they get burned out, or they get sick, or they. So it's not necessarily true that people that perform acts of kindness also give kindness to themselves. I wish it were, but so for me, because you talked about both Randy and I, we try to do this on a daily basis. My self care is a non negotiable. It wasn't always that way, by the way. When I got burned out, I wasn't practicing the talk. But for now, if my batteries are not full, how can I give all that energy away? So when we create cultures of kindness within an organization, guess what? Happy employees who are kind to themselves and others are the best colleagues to have, the best.
Hmm.
And why do I say that? Because if I show up at work and I've taken care of myself, my batteries are full, and I see somebody else, let's say I'm going to use Rain as an example. For whatever reason, there's something, and I can read him, and there's a cloud over his head. He's going through a lot in his life or whatever. I can say, Randy, my brother, yeah, he could have a sick kid or a wife or whatever. Like, go home. I got you. Because my batteries are full. I have your back, basically. There might come a time next week when Randy will have my back. And that always
Hmm.
comes, it flows naturally and easily. It's not manufactured or anything like that. That's why kind and happy employees are the best employees and their best teammates. And that's how you create that kind of culture where, you know what, we're not all at 100% on the same exact day, but whoever's, doing well, they can a helping hand. See that we
Exactly.
do good, right? And we help one another. And that's how you create teams of trust. Because
Hmm.
relationships, I know love is important, but guess what's more important? It's trust.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of people, like I did a lot of marriage counseling over the years, they loved one another.
Hmm.
But when there was breach of trust, especially more than once or twice, guess what? That marriage or that relationship was pretty much over. They loved one another, but trust had been breached too much. That's why trust to me is the foundation. So if I trust that Randy's going to show up for me, or if Randy and you, April, trust that I will show up for you when you in your time of need, that is a very powerful connection that we have.
It definitely is. And you mentioned something that is so important about um, not just the trust aspect, but about, having that awareness that kindness doesn't cost a thing. It's when somebody thinks, oh, I still have all this to do, and yet that person has this challenge in their life, and that means it's a burden. I have to take on more. When we come from that place of kindness, of true, genuine, authentic compassion and caring for one another, then it doesn't cost anything. And I learned from Wayne Dyer said a
Mm.
long time ago, right? That's the ego, that's the mindset, and ego is edging God out, edging that. I say like higher power, whatever your higher power is, that connection to source, that connection to you. That's when it costs you something. So when you're in that state of mind, as you perfectly described, um, Ellie, about, I got your back. I'm going to be here for you. And then Randy could relax and go, okay, I can turn my focus on what really matters right
Right.
now.
Exactly.
And that's so important in any dynamic, whether it's home life, work life, community life, just knowing to have people, to have that little safety net to come in. Yeah. Randy, what is your contribution to this discussion here? What shined for you in that moment of us talking?
Well, as I sit and listen to you and thinking about what Elio was saying and the experience that I've had, we both had the opportunity to be there for each other when we needed it, and there's something to be said about knowing that you have a support system around you. There are people out there who don't necessarily have that all the time. That's why, Elia talks about this, and I've talked about this. It's so important. We have, times when we just receive a little nudge, little thought in our mind. April needs to hear from somebody today, or Elia needs to hear from somebody, or or Randy needs to hear from somebody. And I found over and over as I've acted on those nudges, if I followed those little, whatever you want to call them, I call them promptings, and act on them, and I can be there for somebody. I can send a text. I can make a call. I can just check on somebody to ask them how they're doing. And and Elias experienced this. He said this. I've heard him say this multiple times. I've had people say, "How did you know? How did you know that I needed that right now?" And the only way I can explain that is something, maybe call it God, call it the universe, whatever your beliefs are. In my mind, somebody prompted me to reach out. So I did. I acted on it. And when we are striving to follow those little nudges, it's another part of being there. And it's a part of creating some psychological safety. It's the same thing that happens when we are looking out for each other at home, at work, wherever we go. If people feel like they have a support system around them, they're going to be a lot more relaxed. And that's what kindness, I should say, really what love that is extended through kindness does for us. Because kindness, what is it? It's love in action. And courageous kindness is being willing to extend love towards others, regardless of the situation.
And I'm so glad that, Randy, you said that, because to me, in life, what really matters is how do we show up in our relationships?
Exactly.
Sometimes kindness is not convenient. Somebody needs you. It's midnight. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. But this is when they need you. It may not be convenient, but it's always worth it when you extend yourself in that hand of love and support. And so it's not always convenient, but that's not the point. The point is, how do you show up? Do you show up with love and an open heart, with kindness, with compassion, with empathy, with forgiveness? How are we showing up in our relationship? That's really what matters.
But and here's another aspect to that too. Kindness is not convenient when somebody's being unkind to you. It's really hard. That's when it's the hardest to turn things around and be kind to other people. But the beautiful thing is, if you show up with kindness in your heart, even in those situations, you can become a disruptor. You can take a situation where there's a lot of heat and where people expect you to respond with the same heat that they're giving out. And when you don't, and you disrupt that, you can turn the temperature down and calm things down. And then people can start to have real conversations. And it makes a huge difference.
And the way you do that, by the way, Randy is 100% right. When somebody's being unkind towards you, the first thing, rather than get defensive or raise your voice and get that, it's like, you know what the kind thing to say to that person is? You must be having a really tough day. Why would you say that? Because only people that have tough days react the way you do. If you're having a happy day, you wouldn't be talking that way. And they're like, what? Like, but it's not true. So all of a sudden, you get them to have awareness of how they're coming across. Because most people don't want to come across as jerks, I don't believe, So you actually speak truth, and they're like, uh-oh, and you allow them the opportunity to perhaps dial it back a little bit. I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm not just having a tough day. I'm having a really rough week. Now we're having a different conversation, heart to heart, as two human beings, where before it was leading to some kind of an escalation that would have been a confrontation, which doesn't have a good outcome anyway.
Exactly.
You notice that when Elia raised his hands, it was like that. When it's an escalation, when it's changes, it becomes like this, where your hands are open and your heart is open, your mind is open. You're much more willing to receive, because you've given them permission to tone down, and given them help them to understand, hey, somebody cares and is willing to listen to me.
Yes, that is it right there. Somebody is actually listening, because we all want to be seen, heard, and be valued. And when we come from kindness and we say, we see you, as you said, Dr. Elia, about, what's going on here? How come you're, reacting that way? Most of the time it's like, I'm just having a really bad day. Or,
right.
If they're open to talking to you, it depends, right?
Well,
we can offer that. We can extend that hand as Randy said, right, keep that open, those open hands, extend that, and let them know it's okay to express, to talk, to share, because there's a lot of people, especially in trauma. I'm trauma, that's what I work in. If they don't feel safe, if they don't feel comfortable, and if they're just getting to know you, they're not going to open up right away. But planting those seeds, letting them know that they're seen, that there is some safety there within you, then that kind of eases that, and they'll be more apt to open up in the future. So we can't have expectations either of people just saying, oh, this is wonderful kindness, and I'm gonna, I'm being real here. People need to understand it's an invitation. You're safe.
My experience, April, is that when you say something like that, you must be having a tough day or whatever, at the very least, it stops them dead on their tracks, because that's not what they were expecting.
Indeed,
They were getting ready for a fight or an argument and so on. And so their walls are up, basically. When you say that, you humanize their experience that they're going through right now. Now, it depends how, in my experience, because people open up to me. I mean, I've done this for 35 years. They're like, yeah, actually, I am having it. You get the tone of voice, the volume goes down. And depending on how vulnerable they want to be or not, depends on if I know them well enough, they're most likely going to say, no, I am having a tough day, man. I'm really sorry. I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. What's going on? And then they could, depending on the environment, maybe they'll open up, maybe they won't. Or maybe it's like, well, I don't feel like talking about it right now. And I'm like, well, if you ever do, I'm here. So now, not only have you acknowledged that they're having a tough day, you're actually saying, I'm here to support you whenever, if, or when you feel ready. Most people actually have taken me up on that. Be careful, like when you ask where you're probably going to get it.
The thing that's beautiful about what you just said, Elia, is you've just flipped a switch for them.
Right.
You flipped a switch for them and open. Well, it really opened a door for them, because that wasn't there before. They didn't have that door open. They didn't, they were handling their situation by themselves, and now they know that they've got someone who is willing to listen and willing to be on their side with them.
Yes, I want to go a little deeper with that, Randy, of they're not alone, because so many people feel that they're alone, that they have to hold everything themselves, or they were taught that growing up or whatever it is, but knowing that they're not alone. Let's go a little deeper into that. I think that's really important with kindness and what we're talking about, especially for leaders.
Can I share a story with you
Please do.
Directly related to this? I mean, I make it a point wherever I go, whenever I move into a new neighborhood, and we've moved a few times. When I move into a new neighborhood, I try to get to know my neighbors. And, I moved into a new area here in Iowa and started going around door to door, just in the few houses around my block, and getting to know people, introducing myself and just finding out a little bit about them. And all of them warned me not to go to this guy's house that was across the street and 3 houses or 4 houses down from where I was. I bet
that was the first door you went to.
That was well, they all says don't go there, and I'm gonna use a different name. John is a real grouch. You don't want to go there. Of course, you're right. I took that as a personal challenge. I'm going there. I'm going to win him over as a friend. Well, I got to his house and he opened the door and we started talking. And within 30 seconds, I could understand why they had said what they said. And so we didn't have much of a conversation other than to say, hi, I'm Randy McNeely and where I'm new there. Well, I'm John. Thanks. Bye. It was pretty much that. So I decided to take a different approach. I decided to try to win. I was determined I wanted to win him over as a friend. And so I started finding ways to serve him. And the easiest way to do that was through shoveling snow. I started, it snowed a bunch here. And so the next day I was out in the morning, I went out and started shoveling his snow. Well, 2 seconds later, I hear his front door slam and he comes walking out there. What the are you doing out here? I said, I'm shoveling your snow. And he said, well, I don't need your help. And I said, okay, well, can you help me out? He's like, what? What do you mean? I says, I'm a big fat guy. I need to lose weight. Will you help me? Let me shovel your snow so I can get some exercise. And you could see him. He didn't laugh, but you could tell he wanted. I mean, his mouth started to twinge, and you could tell he wanted to smile, but he didn't. And he just gets this look on his face, like, oh, okay. And he walked back into the house and slammed the door. So it just happened. It snowed more that day. I went back the next day and I started shoveling snow again. True to form, within 30 seconds after I started shoveling, I hear the door slam, and hear this tromp, tromp, tromp. And what the are you doing out here? And I said, I'm shoveling the snow. You told me I could come and shovel to get some exercise. And he's like, oh, okay. But this time, a few minutes later, he came out, he had his coat on and his boots, and he had a shovel, and he helped me shovel his driveway. And then we started talking, and I started to get to know him. I found out that he'd been taking care of his older brother who was in a wheelchair for a long time. And that was a big, he was under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. And that was a big reason why he was kind of grumpy as he was. But as we started to talk and I started to get to be friends, then he opened up a little bit. And then the next day I went back to shovel again, and we ended up shoveling 3 different sidewalks together. And it just started breaking, no pun intended, we started breaking the ice. But over time, we became friends. It got to a point where if I was walking down the street and he opened his doors, hey, Randy, how's it going? He called down the street. And everybody, a lot of people in the neighborhood said, what did you do to John? I said, nothing. I said, I just determined I wanted to be his friend. And
okay, yeah. This is the perfect example, because I talk with kindness, everybody wins. I call it the 4 wins. Randy's example is ideal. That so the first win, of course, is the receiver. Anytime you're on the receiving end of kindness, there's win. The second one is the giver, because now with neuroscience, we know that when we perform acts of kindness, and mind you, they're not random acts of kindness, they're deliberate, conscious, and mindful acts of kindness. Their beautiful hormones get released into our system and stay in our system for 24 hours. The third win is the interaction between him and John. So the connection between over time, that's a third win. And the fourth win, guess what the fourth win is? It's those people that have witnessed this act of kindness and get inspired. Remember that his neighbors told him, don't go to that house.
Yes.
And now they're witnessing John coming out and smiling and shoveling together with Randall, like, what? So now they can get inspired to actually go and perform their own acts of kindness, whether it's towards John or somebody else. That's not the point. So that's why with kindness, there's 4 wins, win, 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 win. And Randy is the perfect example for that.
That was amazing. I love that.
I need to just throw out one more quick thing. After that, we did all this shoveling together. And then the next year, when the first snow came, I wake up, there's like 6 or 7 inches of snow on the ground. I wake up and I hear the snow blower going, and I look out the window, and who is snow blowing my driveway? It's John.
Of course.
I said, John, what are you doing? He says, well, I've had this snow blower in my garage for like 15 years, and it's been broken, and you inspired me to fix it. So here I am. And so he beat me to the punch, and then we went and had a snow blowing party afterwards. Oh.
And this is why he's known as Captain Kindman. He does stuff like that all the time. This is just one beautiful example in how he really changed the trajectory of this man's life with very small acts of kindness. Yeah. What I liked about it, he didn't give up after the first grumpy encounter.
Exactly.
He could have said, you know what? Yeah, this guy is a jerk. Whatever. I'm not coming back to shovel your snow. He came back the next day. So over time, even a hardened heart melted, just like the snow did. And Captain Kindman this is what he does. Yeah, that's why I love Randy. His heart is so big, full of gold. He's golden.
You both are. And it reminds me of the Rudolph, not Rudolph, but the Santa Claus coming to town with the snow wizard, and everybody said stay away from him, he's awful, and then they gave him a toy and he melted, so that's what it is. It's being curious too. I'm curious of
Sure.
why this person is that way. And Randy did not shy away. You didn't shy away from knocking on his door and being curious and coming back, because then you offered that kindness and that compassion, and he received it, and then he gave back. And so I love it. It goes back to the 4 acts of kindness. Dr. Elia, I love it. The giver, the receiver, giver interactions and witnessed. It's so true. And it does come back to neuroscience and how those endorphins are released and we feel better as we give and receive. That's a reciprocity and all of that. So, oh, I so love this conversation that we're having. I did put the ticker at the bottom of kindnessworldwide.org for people to check them out. That's where Kevin Smith and the and how we met with the Hounds of Business and Mike Asherbranner and Such as Time as This, the movie. I loved watching the movie and seeing both of you in it. So anybody that's curious about that, please go and check out that website. They are also looking for kindness ambassadors worldwide. So if you feel that you fit right in with these amazing souls here today, check it out, see what that's all about, because we all need more kindness, and especially for ourselves, as we're the ripple effect around the globe. So before we go, this has gone so fast. I just love this conversation. I just want to just have each of you share a takeaway message. What do you want our listeners and viewers to know? What is a message of kindness that you have for them? And also your contact information, how to connect with you. Since I have you up there, Randy, do you mind going first?
No, not at all. My message is simple. The first thing, it comes back to that little song, remembering that kindness begins with me. If I could say anything, 2 words: love yourself. Love yourself. Take the time every day to look in the mirror and say, I love me because, and name 3 or 4 things. When you do that, it'll be much easier to look at other people and say, I love you. I love you, April. I love you, Elia. I love and appreciate you for who you are. When we have that love in our heart, that's what kindness is all about. We're talking all about kindness, but really, what is kindness? Again, kindness is love in action. It's love made visible. It's all about delivering the love that this world needs now more than ever. Remember that song from the 60s? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Well, every one of us here can be the means of delivering that love through simple acts of kindness. We can help love grow in the world every day by giving kindness away. Wherever we go, it can help love grow through kindness.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Randy. I really appreciate those words of wisdom as you have lived that experience. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you, April, for having me. It's been a blessing. By the way, Elia, just to know, I'm afraid I'm over here blushing. I'm almost as red as my cape because of your kindness. Thank you for your kind words.
It's true though. You're welcome. You too exemplify that. I think for
I
me, April would be don't procrastinate your happiness. Forget all.
Say that again.
Very good.
Yeah, don't procrastinate your happiness, because most people live in the when. So basically,
Yes.
when I'm in the right relationship, when I get married, when I have kids, when my kids grow up, when my kids get married, when I have enough money, when I have enough time, when I retire, all these whens, guess what? There are no guarantees any one of us is going to be here tomorrow. So the best gift to the world is for you to find your own inner bliss, your inner peace, to live as balanced life as you can, and to pursue, happiness in your daily life. And obviously, kindness and happiness, like I said before, you cannot have one without the other. So the other thing I wanted to say is, if there's anyone in your audience that has or knows of anyone who has a compelling story where they've overcome difficulties and struggles and so on, and they're crushing it in life, talk to us, either through April or directly to Randy and I. because we're not only determined but committed to creating more movies and more storytelling through the Kindness Factor International, and to showcase people that have had ups and downs,
Hmm.
and they've conquered their trauma, and they healed their trauma, and and they've climbed the mountain, and now are being beautiful examples to other people. So we want to tell stories like that. So if you have someone that you know or yourself, reach out to us, and let's have a conversation. We'll see where it goes.
Amen. Amen to
Exactly.
that. Just to say, we have the master storyteller working with us, that Elgin Cahill. He's not here, but we would love to be able to help you, bring your story to life.
I love that invitation. Yeah. So where, just reach out to you, Dr. Ilya, or
And Randy, yeah, just reach out to
Randy.
LinkedIn, or my website. Yeah, just reach out to us.
You can go to thekindnessfactor.com and reach out to us that way as well. Thekindnessfactor.com.
Yeah,
Kindnessfactor.com.
yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Can they find that through the kindnessworldwide.org, or is that a totally separate?
No, it's a separate.
Totally,
It's our,
totally separate website. It's our own website.
yeah,
Okay.
thekindnessfactor.com. Yeah, and or LinkedIn is the best way that we can have a conversation afterwards. We just
Of
want
course.
to produce stories that are inspiring, uplifting, positive, with a heart. And because
Mm,
Elgin's such a great storyteller, he will make your story sing. I promise you that.
wonderful. I can think of a few people right now I need to refer over there to you both. So yeah,
Sounds
everybody
great.
has a story. Yeah, everybody has a story, and their story matters. And I know that's kind of been, washed, rinse, repeated, whatever, but it's so true. Everybody's story matters, and no one has lived our own experiences. And there's a lot of people that think maybe their story isn't as impactful as somebody else's, but it truly is. So please reach out to Dr. Ilya or Randy, share your story, connect with these two beautiful souls that are continuing to ripple kindness globally. And I'm so excited for you both. And also you, Dr. Ilya, going, doing your world adventure. I can't wait to see things on LinkedIn, on your posts and things, see where you're at, what you're doing. And I hope that people also reach out to you, Randy, to connect and just to hear more of your story too, because it is truly, moving as well. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for being curious about how kindness can impact your life and your leadership, and most importantly, your own life. So thank you both for being here. I appreciate you. And everyone,
Thank you, April.
enjoy the rest of your day and keep living with intention. Be well.
Thank you so much, April.
Thank you, April.
We appreciate
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.